Hello, I'm Maria Bell and I'm one of LSE's academic support librarians. I'm going to be talking through a few tips and techniques for carrying out your literature searches, which are an important component of the literature review part of your research projects. The aim is to be able to plan and carry out a literature search for your literature reviews, and this will mean you will be able to devise appropriate subject keywords that will result in finding academic books, journal articles, and key websites that are highly relevant to your research questions. So we're going to look at the keywords and the search strategies that we need to use, and then the sources for those searches and where we can start and how we can use those search sources in a more efficient way, and then consider how to manage the information and cite it in our written reports and research findings. Before we go on, just to remind ourselves of what a literature review is. So it is, in short, a survey and discussion of the literature in any given area of study. And why we carry out a literature review is so that we can organise and understand any previous research that has been carried out in our areas and relate it to our own research projects and what we're planning to do within that research. A good literature review is critical of what has been written, will identify areas of controversy, raise questions or identify gaps in previous research, and be clear on why the chosen research question or topic warrants further exploration. Getting started. When we carry out any search for information, we're following this process even when we don't realise it and haven't given it too much thought. So in this case, you will have a topic in mind, your research question that you've agreed in your groups, and you will have also identified some parameters of that research, whether it's covering several years or several countries, cities or industries, or be much narrower in its scope. From here, you will have selected some keywords and structured them for your search engines and chosen information sources that are relevant to the subject area that you're researching. After you've performed an initial search, inevitably some results won't all be relevant. There will be either too many results or too few, and this will mean you will review and revise the scope and keywords and go through the process again. And this can go on for a short time while you're carrying out your literature review. Having defined your research question and identified the parameters of that research, you'll turn your attention to the keywords that you're going to use to find those resources that are most relevant to that question and to helping you argue your question. Within your research question, there will be obvious keywords to use, but it's important and useful to consider alternatives, such as wider search terms or narrower subject search terms, in case your initial searches are bringing up very irrelevant results or too many or too few results. The example here is from an LSE essay question, which was to discuss the effects of television violence on children. Clearly, the keywords underlined, television, violence and children, are important to use, but it would also be useful to consider further search terms, such as ways to describe children could be young people, youth, teenagers, or for television might be media, or for violence it might be aggression that might be used in an article or a book. So it would be important to have an exercise together in selecting and choosing as many of keywords that might be relevant as possible. Working together, an early activity might be to brainstorm your research question and establish as many keywords that could describe that research topic and consider also how you might structure any search in a search engine or other information resource. Next step is to consider where you are going to go to start searching for the relevant literature. This could be any number of sources, and first of all you could look at what you're most familiar with. Where do you already go for essays and assignment readings? This could be your own reading lists. It could be Google, of course, or Google Scholar, or the library search engines that you each have at Imperial and LSE. Both Imperial and LSE have a system called Library Search, which you will be familiar with already in reading for your courses. These work in similar ways, although they do have different interfaces and will of course access different types of material and collections. But they are useful places to start any subject search because they'll bring up any academic books, book chapters, journal articles, and going further into statistical information or newspaper information or government information. As I've said, both library search systems may have different designs but work in the same way and enable you to get straight into your research by starting with a broad subject term perhaps, such as environmental policy. As I've said, both library search systems may have different designs but work in the same way and enable you to get straight into your research by starting with a broad subject term perhaps, such as environmental policy, and then reviewing those initial results and either adding more keywords to the search box, or having a look at the options on either the left or right of the screen to filter them down by either resource type or their availability or their subject or topic areas. Many of you may have used Google Scholar already and know that it's an extremely useful search engine for academic research. While Google will provide unfiltered results from anyone and anywhere, Google Scholar is only searching across academic or scholarly material, such as those that will appear in published academic books or journals or published from university research outputs. Thus, it's giving you a more focused set of results. It is possible to know what Google Scholar does not cover, though, as Google does choose to keep this to itself. But by using both Library Search and Google Scholar, you can make an incredibly useful start to your literature search. Working in your groups, a valuable activity will be to carry out the same searches in both Library Search and Google Scholar and compare your results. The search engines may work differently. There may be different search functions that will enable you to narrow your results better or limit by date or by topic better. Look at the type of materials that you find. Is it mainly journal articles and books? And are these the types of resources you're looking for? Or are you looking for data or legal materials? Some material just isn't going to be openly available through Google Scholar and may only be available through a source at your library. Some search tips to consider when using any information source. Always search for individual words, keywords, rather than pasting the whole sentence or research question into your search engine. When you get too many results, it's going to be necessary to think of extra terms or add extra terms to narrow them down. But if you've not got enough results, you may need to think of different terms and keywords. When the results can be too vague and perhaps aren't hitting the right part of your research, think about whether you need to search certain words as a phrase, such as human rights or global civil society, and use the quotation marks. And always think about using the advanced search, as this can really help you hone down the structure of your search and find results much more quickly and much more relevant results. In an information-rich world, the question that is commonly asked is, how do we know that what we're looking at is good quality? Is it truthful? Is it accurate? Is it of academic quality? And so here are just some questions to always bear in mind when you're evaluating any search results. Who has produced that work? what is the organisation? Has it got a bias to its work? Is there an author that's a known expert in the field? Where has it been published, or how current is the publication? And is it from a scholarly or peer-reviewed publication? Library Search allows you to limit your journal article searches to peer-reviewed journals only, and this will mean that the articles will have been through a rigorous publication process where the article is reviewed by academic peers in the same field. When undertaking any research project, consider the types of materials that you're going to need to access and what value they will provide for your research. So are you looking initially at the commentary on your subject area that is provided through academic books and journals? Or are you looking for a contemporary viewpoint provided by newspapers and news services? Or an official viewpoint that might be provided in government publications or through official statistical data? Always keep your research question and your purpose in mind, and consider what each of those sources might bring to your argument. Important to the research process is managing the information and the data that you find. So keep track of what you find and what you might need at a later stage as you go along. Keep a search log of the search terms that you've been using so that you can review them easily. And using tools such as Library Search or any subject resource, save the searches so that they can be rerun quickly and accessed easily. This is doubly important when working in groups so that there's no stage of the research process that is duplicated or omitted. By managing and organising your sources and data well, you'll be able to recall the information when you need it in your writing up and presentations, and cite consistently and accurately in your reference lists, thus following good academic practice and demonstrating academic integrity by acknowledging the work of others, while equally clearly showing your own work. We have looked at starting the research process by carrying out a literature search to review the literature and inform your research project. Planning your literature search by defining your question, the parameters of your research, selecting the keywords, and devising a search strategy will enable you to interrogate resources such as Library Search, Google Scholar, or any subject-specific sources that you might use. Understanding what each type of resource, whether a book, newspaper or journal article, could bring to your research, and evaluating your sources and evidence for their relevance, authority and quality will provide the groundwork for your research project. Please get in touch with any of the librarians at Imperial or LSE if you need any assistance with using resources, or to discuss your literature search further, or to carry out any data research. Thank you.